Today is January 14th, Tuesday, 2025. The title of this video is My Scammers Are American Made, with apologies to the Oak Ridge Boys for that wonderful song from the 90s, My Baby is American Made. You remember that? My baby is American made, born and raised in the USA. I love that song. I'm changing the words, and my scammers are American made. Unfortunately, my scammers were all American made. They were not calling from India. They were not calling from Pakistan. Nothing like that. Didn't come in an email. Didn't come in cell phone. It was all in person, up close and personal salesmanship. So the actual topic of this video is salesmanship and what does it mean and what is its role in American culture. That's really what I'm talking about today. And I have a really bad feeling about this. I have a really bad feeling that I'm right on this hypothesis that I have. And I'm thinking of my background is in literature and history, especially literature. And I'm thinking of two characters in particular from literature, Tom Sawyer and Willie Loman. Tom Sawyer, of course, from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, famous novels that I think people still read in high school. I hope so, because they're really big part of our culture, for good and for bad. But if you recall that story, Tom Sawyer was given a task to whitewash the fence by Aunt Polly, and he didn't want to do it because it was too much work. So he convinces other kids, hey, this is a great thing that I'm doing. This is a special task that not everybody is capable of doing. And you really need to get in on this because this is a great thing here, what I'm doing here. And his salesmanship is so good that he does convince other people to do his work for him. Little rascal. He does eventually get in trouble for it, but unfortunately, that doesn't always play out the same way in real life. So that's one example of salesmanship as a really strong part of American culture. The idea of selling. I had a friend's father that I knew once many years ago. He was a top salesman. He reached a very high level in his company because he was such a good salesman. He was eventually put in charge of districts. He rose to very high in his company. And I remember watching him one day. We were at dinner and we were talking about this whole salesman culture, and his hands were very big and meaty. And he said, when I started in business, I wanted to sell. And the way he clenched his fist kind of scared me. I wanted to sell. The way it was like sales is kind of a type of warfare, and the customer is the victim. And that's what the way it works out far too often. And that's what I fell victim to. I want to sell. I want to sell. I have a bloodlust to sell. That's my destiny in life, to sell. The way he clenched his fist was creepy, but he did. And he did wind up being a very top salesman, and he got very wealthy as a result of his initial salesmanship. And he rose to an executive level. Um, so that's one. Tom Sawyer is one example. The other example is Willie Loman. If you recall the play Death of the Salesman, also very famous, also usually studied in high school. I hope they still do. Um, it was a story of how sales was his way of life, and it was so important for him to be liked because being liked meant success in sales. And guess who else was well liked? Sam and Jeremy, especially little baby Sam. You know, these kids were like Fagin and the Artful Dodger. You know, that all another text, Oliver Twist, Charles Dickens, where they would send these innocent looking young kids out to pick pockets in London. And Fagin was the old guy behind the scenes, kind of ugly, but he was the one teaching all these kids, innocent looking kids, who could get away with it because they were young and innocent, right? They could get away with it because they were charming, like Sam. They were charming and they were innocent looking and they befriended you. Or maybe they were just so small that you didn't even notice them picking your pocket. And that's a sales technique, evidently. Evidently. Uh, Now, counter examples to this deplorable state of affairs, and I have a bad feeling that American culture has a lot of this in it, that sales is a big part of it. You know, when you promote yourself, you're really selling yourself, right? That's a form of sales. When you're a teacher, you're selling ideas, so you have to be good at that. You know, you have to be good at presenting the idea in an attractive way so that the kids will learn it and accept it. There's all kinds of things related to sales. I want to give you to the Willie Loman and Tom Sawyer and pernicious electricians who sold me a panel and a termite abatement that I didn't need for $10,000. That was selling in a vicious way. That was selling to a person who did not need these things. And selling people things they don't need is called upselling. And it's something you don't want to do because it's wrong. It's ethically wrong. It's sinful if you're into that. It is. And my counterexamples are two counterexamples of how to do it the right way. One is my husband, my late husband, Reverend Terry Martin. That was him. And he was not a salesman. And to put this, that's putting it very mildly indeed. Here, we'll leave him here so you can watch my progress with this video. Glare. Okay. Oops, there's too much glare. Ach, Quatsch. Okay. There we go. All right. At one point he was in between jobs, and this was out in California, was where he came from. I love this story. It's funny. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. He was in between priestly jobs, and he was kind of a little bit in a transitional period. So eventually he did come out to New Jersey, and or anyway, he came out to be with me, and then we got married, and we went on from there. That's not part of the story. That's not part of this story. That's a different story. He was in California, and since he was in between jobs, he decided to take a job. The worst person in the world to take a job like this. He decided, because he liked cars. He was really into cars. He was a car freak, right? He decided to take a job as a used car salesman. Why am I laughing? I'm laughing because he failed miserably, because he did things like, he told me this story. When people would come in, he would try to direct them to the kind of car they needed, not the kind of car that was expensive. So he said at one point, these two women came in. They were teachers, by the way. They were teachers, and they weren't big earners. They didn't have a lot of money. So they were looking at this car. I don't know if it was a Jaguar or some kind of fancy schmancy expensive car. And he looked at them, realized their situation, and he said, ladies, can I show you something else? This is where it all went wrong for the company. It all started to go wrong right there. He said, I don't think this is a good car for you. So he took them over to a car that was 1/3 the price. These were all used cars, but still, there's a hierarchy. A car that was maybe 1/4 of the price, much more reliable, low mileage, suitable, sturdy, safe. He said, I think why don't you take a look at this one? Let's test drive and you see what you think. I don't think this Jaguar is for the sports car was for you. So he convinced them, he downsold them, but he sold them something that was appropriate for them. And I'm going to show his picture again to give him the credit. Hopefully I can see him smiling a little bit more. So he downsold. He didn't upsell. Learn from this man, Sam and Jeremy. Learn from this man, not from your Fagin in your company who's leading you astray spiritually. He died at 68 in his sleep, basically. Life is short, and you just never know when the angel of death is going to come knocking on your door. I sure didn't see it coming. I mean, we were talking one night, we're talking about, random things and just ordinary things. The next thing I know, I find him dead on the sofa at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The angel of death can come at any time, and you're going to be held accountable. We're all going to be held accountable for our deeds. He's going to be rewarded for what he did for those two ladies by downsell. Of course, he got fired from the job. He got fired from the job, and he thought, I better start looking at church jobs again because this sales thing is not working out for me. Now, that's an honest person. Another example of honest selling is a figure that is much maligned in American culture, and wrongly, the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, Prophet Muhammad he was in the import export business. His first wife had the company, and he worked for her. That's how they met. And he was known as the honest one, the truthful one. That was his nickname. And when he did these trade routes for Khadijah, he was more profitable and made her more money than she had ever made with any other manager. How did he do that? He was honest. He didn't sell people things they did not need just to make a little more money. And because he had this reputation for honesty, they knew that when they bought something from him, he was not upselling, he was not selling them a defective product, because he had this reputation for being so impeccably honest. And that's how he wound up making more money. Now, let me transfer this to the 21st century American experience. If you screw customers like you screwed me and like you've screwed a lot of people on Yelp, do you think you're going to have a return customer with those people and with people who find out about it? Which I'm doing my best to get people to find out what you are. I'm doing my best. Check Yelp. You're not going to have return business. You're going to always be seeking new customers to screw new people who don't know any better. This is wrong. It's just wrong what you're doing. And it's bad business. It's bad business. Now, those two ladies who bought the cheaper used car, if they down the road they need another car, if he were still working there, which he hadn't been, but if he had been, where are they going to go back to get their next car? They're going to go back to the same guy, right? Of course, he stopped working for them and he moved out of the state. But the point is, if you want return business, be like Muhammad, be honest, be the truthful one in business, because long term this is not a viable business model what you guys are doing. You're going to shoot yourselves in the foot with this. People will not come back, and if you don't get return business, you might as well close up shop. And that's all she wrote for now. And I'm at 11 minutes and 44 seconds, so I'm going to sign off. Be especially careful out there. And once again, don't sign anything. Don't sign on iPads. Don't sign on notebook computers. Don't sign on paper. Don't sign anything until you, what did I say? I had a little slogan that I'm going to promote here. Where did it go? I'm always leaving my papers. What did I say? Stop, drop, and sit, and then phone a friend. Stop, drop, and sit. Calm down the amygdala, calm down the animal brain. If you feel that you're afraid, that's not the time to sign anything. When you feel fear, that's when you don't sign things. That's when you say, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Go away. I'll think about it tomorrow. And then call a friend who's knowledgeable, or two or three friends who are knowledgeable about electrical panels or whatever it is that they're trying to get you to buy. So once again, be good to yourselves and be good to one another. And remember, we're all in this together. We're not separate from one another. We're all connected. Peace out.